The Israeli hostage families released footage of female soldiers captured on the 7th of October. And the reason why they released that footage, okay, the reason why they released that footage was to put pressure on the Israeli government. However, that footage was used, and it was already like footage that had been out before. It had circulated before and debunked before certain aspects of it, right? But immediately, Americans took that footage and were like, see, they want to do rapes. They're saying they want to do rapes. And it's always so fucking wild when people say this shit because they just suspect that not a single person will speak Arabic, or rather, not a single person will ask a person who can speak Arabic. Yeah, the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs released the footage with the fucking fake translation, which is crazy. That in and of itself, let me tell you something. That in and of itself is literally, it's over. You do that, it's over. You should be universally never trusted ever again. Okay? You do some shit like that as the government, and Israel has done it a million times over at this point. Okay? But you do some shit like that. What is this? You sent me your fucking bookmarks folder? What is happening, chatter? Are we out of control? It's also subtly designed to make you look like you're either supporting or otherwise denying the events they're alleging if you attempt to refute or correct them. It's like, wow, so you're saying these women weren't raped? Yeah, it's insane. And it does not make any sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand how, I don't understand how they run with this. Like, I don't understand how American outlets just run with it. Sickening new video shows Hamas line up female soldiers on October 7th. Here are the girls who can get pregnant. And it's like, bro, what is happening? Like, do you think that we are living in colonial times? Do you think you can just be like, the angry black man is tribal and just write it on the fucking paper of record? And then because at that point, no one thinks that black people are human beings, I guess, that like no one will question it. Bro, this is 2024. There are people who speak Arabic online. There are people who can like watch the footage and go, what the fuck are you saying? I just don't understand it. I do not understand it at all. It's just pure racism, right? It has to be. It's just like the idea that you think you can get away with like releasing this and just expecting no one to question it is just because like, well, technically if someone speaks Arabic, they are also a terrorist. Like the audience that you're going after is basically people who firmly believe that like if someone speaks Arabic, then they're a threat. So like the people that you're trying to convince here are going to be people that like hear Arabic and go, oh, they're rapists anyway. So this just like reaffirms their suspicions. And then they're not going to go and fact check it. They're not going to go and like ask someone who does speak Arabic, right? Because anyone who speaks Arabic is a terrorist. So obviously like it's you know perfectly crafted in the most laughable way possible if it wasn't so damning and so insane, and the situation that they were like, I guess, trying to manipulate in this circumstance wasn't already like pretty awful. You know what I mean? I don't think you understand terrorism, Hasan. Wait, what? On like the top of the hour, oh, fuck. God damn it. I was too busy reading their fucking previous take. God damn it. Dude, why? Why you guys got to do this to me when I'm like literally in the pocket? When I'm in the pocket and I'm just locked in on the stories, you hit me with a fucking low effort ass bait, dude. At the top of the hour, nonetheless. Tech Jess, thank you for the 10 gifted subs, allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Oh my God. He smoked you, OG. Smoked OG, you got smoked. I did. Daily Mail Online. You're so beautiful. The girls who can get pregnant. Horrifying new footage shows Hamas fanatics taunt young Israeli women with the threat of rape, making them have their children as the hostages. One still in her Snoopy pajamas, plead to be freed. Again, this is over. The mass rape is done. The Israeli regime is Zionists, in their desperation to cover up their APPs, ICC charges, and recognition of Palestine, decided to abandon all pretense and thereby fully expose what the hoax it is. Now, the thing is, the reason why the hostage families actually resurfaced the footage, okay, was so that they could literally increase the pressure. They wanted to increase the fucking pressure on the government to do a ceasefire. But of course, just like the way that the hostage families have, used the posters of the hostages in Israel, and the way that is perceived by the broader Israeli population is very different over there in comparison to over here. Over here, we use the hostage posters to be like, see, that's why we're going to fucking murder all of them. That's why we're going to murder all of them. Meanwhile, if you're doing that in Tel Aviv, you're doing that to be like, stop murdering the fucking hostages. This is something that, a lot of people refuse to comprehend in the Western world. This does not mean that the family of the hostages are actually, anti-Zionists or whatever. Of course they're not. But even within the confines of Zionism, there are still people who want a ceasefire for obvious reasons. I live in Tel Aviv. I just got back home, and there was literally a billboard saying something like, Yoav Galant, do a better job or quit, which seems good until you read the next line. It says, we didn't fight so there could be a Palestinian state in Gaza. I hate this shithole. Yeah, exactly. So that was the point I was going to mention. There are a lot of people that hate the fucking war cabinet because they're not going hard enough, for example. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people who hate the war cabinet because they're not doing a ceasefire. My mom in Israel literally used the footage to continue the fighting. Yeah. And there are still people in Israel that are looking at that footage and going, this is why we fight. This is why we fight. This is why we fight. Now, the problem is, in the Western world, no one looks at that footage, on the Zionist side at least. In the Western world, no one looks at that fucking footage and goes, yeah, that's why they need to do a ceasefire. They look at that footage to go, no, that's why we need to keep fucking pummeling Gaza. Meanwhile, the hostage families are releasing the footage specifically to be like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? These are our family members that are stuck in Gaza, and you're blowing them up. Now, of course, it did correspond to an AP News debunking that just came out, and Israel does have a really good eye for this sort of thing. Whenever they see someone whenever they see some naysayers in Western media, they immediately hit him with remember October 7 line? And they just resurface that to be like, hey, remember how bad it was? Remember how fucking bad October 7 was? And it was bad, okay? But it still does not allow Israel. It does not give Israel the right to do a million October 7s all the fucking time, right? So, and this is the other side of the Israeli discourse. What is this? It is not so clear to me what in the observational video caused such a public reaction. We've seen much, much worse. I answer here broadly to everyone. Dear brothers, how can you even imagine that I am indifferent to the fate of the kidnapped? I risked my life for many months on missions in Gaza to try to get them back. I saw the horrors of Hamas with my eyes and felt them with my hands in the days after the massacre. My question was honest. I was really just trying to understand. There are difficult documents of abductees who are still alive, which were published in the past and did not receive a similar distribution and public reaction, and I wanted to understand what happened. Any other reading of my words is forcefully looking for a fight, which is definitely a shame. So, I think the reason why this invokes a lot of reaction, because this round of footage, I think really, but this is footage that is not new. This has been out before, I'm pretty sure, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I remember them trying to do the fake caption, they want to rape our women shit before. I'm pretty sure they tried to do that before and were roundly condemned and criticized for trying to do that. But because it was very close to October 7 at the time, that it was there was a lot more momentum in favor of Israel. Israel had a lot more I guess social and political capital to expend at that point, because people were just finding out about it. Bro, a poll came out yesterday, and the combined effects of the ICC warrants and Gantz's threats and the fight with Gallant is that a Likud have the highest seat projections at the start of the war. I can't. Oh my God. Only God will save Israel, dude, at this point. I don't know how to fucking... I don't know how... Yeah. Washington Post also has been lying and saying that sabaya has sexual connotations. The Arabic word sabaya does not have sexual connotations. It's playing on racist and Orientalist shows about Arabs and Muslims. Relying on the fabricated idea of translation of the word isn't journalism. Yeah. It's just, there, and that is the educated version of this. Like, that is the educated, laundered narrative. So Eunice Tarawi responds, "You're stooping so low as to sexualize your own female soldiers and using them as propaganda material." The first phrase, "get pregnant," is fabricated by the author. He says, "Here are the captured women," using the Arabic word sabaya, the plural form of sabiya, which means captured women. These are not civilians like other hostages. They are active on-duty soldiers captured from a military base, Nahal Oz military observation post. Hamas men said, "Those are the ones who have been killing our brothers," referring to the extrajudicial killings during the March of Return. The translation claims, "These are the Zionists," but he actually said, "Here are the cowards, Hay al-Hamal." Israel edited the video, adding noise to obscure the original audio. What was audible as "no beautiful" was mistranslated as "you are so beautiful," to imply Hamas was complimenting the female soldiers. Another mistranslation occurred when a Hamas man said "talle," which means "get her up onto the vehicle." The pervert author said "without her." And it's fucking nutty. Sabaya just means girls. I don't know why he added captured. No, as far as I understand it, sabaya or sabia is a specific terminology for captured women in war, is it not? And by the way, it literally is the opposite. The reason for the terminology is because, like, Islam has very clear rules about what not to do with enemy combatants. I thought it was, it just means girl. Okay. Regardless, Islam does have very specific rules of what not to do with captive women. Not that it matters in this situation. 1,000,000%. A religion having rules about something isn't an ironclad argument and shouldn't be used. This wasn't... No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I wasn't saying that to be like, oh, they would never do that because of Islam. I'm saying that the irony is that the Orientalist understanding dictates that rapist, barbarian, Muslims actually are capturing women specifically to rape them, when in fact, if they were at least a little bit more inquisitive about the rules of Islam, they would recognize that it is exactly the fucking opposite. That was simply what I was mentioning here. Not to say that, like, they actually follow the rules of Islam or anything like that. I'm simply stating that Orientalism quite literally shows you the exact opposite, or presents the exact opposite of the supposed rules, making it seem like, oh, they are capturing people specifically to rape them with no real justification for that whatsoever. Anyway. Also, these are random fighters saying shit. Even if they said anything, is there actual proof? Meanwhile, you have Israeli leaders calling for ethnic cleansing. I know. The reason why we're getting into the minutia and the hyper specifics here is because it is being used as another round of propaganda. And I want people to like be able to properly debunk it if they want to know what the truth is. You know what I mean? And I'm using this also as an opportunity to clarify certain aspects of even Orientalism and how damaging Orientalism can be, especially when mainstream media in the West is looking at this and taking the false translation and running with it, when in fact, it's like a relatively simple way to parse through this. It's a relatively simple way to just look at it and go, that's ridiculous. That's not what it says. And Israel has done this many times over. If you recall, famously, you had the Brigadier Rear Admiral fucking go and like point at a calendar and be like, this is a Hamas terror schedule. And it was just a calendar. He was like, look, see, they have the names of the hostages. And people were like, no, dude, those are the names of the days of the week. You're fucking stupid. And they've done it time and time again, which is why I think it's important for people to understand. They are only able to do this. They would never be able to do this if Hamas was speaking English, if the enemy was white and spoke English. They would not be able to do this to the same degree. But because the enemy is this like secret, scary, mystical being and a rapist barbarian horde in the eyes of the world that wants to destroy the entirety of the Islamic population, right? And in an effort to justify America's war on terror, we've kind of run this narrative over and over again, and people just take that shit for granted. You can get away with doing this. Laughable levels of like introductory level 1 racism. Do you understand? I just realized Israel blocked you. Did they? No, they didn't. Norway, if your goal is to reward terrorism by declaring support for a Palestinian state, you achieved it. Hamas thanks you for your service. Dude, two things always happen. Whenever the Western world, and I'm going to get to the second part of this, whenever the Western world, like, turns around and says, like, oh yeah, Associated Press debunked how the 2 debunked accounts of sexual violence on October 7th fueled a dispute over the Israel-Hamas war. They'll do this article, Israel will retaliate and be like, no, they're actually rapists. And like, they have to fucking come up with like an October 7th thing to recycle again. And then, and on the more nefarious side of things, they will then further punish the Palestinian population. And that's the other side of the story. Because on the one hand, they are going crazy. They're going nutty mode over the disturbing new video released of hostages in Gaza, right? On the other hand, however, they're also simultaneously increasing the pressure upon the Palestinian population. What are they doing? Oh, that's right. They're recycling funds taken from border communities inside of Israel and putting them directly into settlement efforts in the West Bank, which is, of course, very frustrating for a lot of people. They're doing that literally, and I guess that's what you're mentioning here as well. Exactly. They're doing that right now. Why are they doing that? The timing of that is very suspicious. It's probably because every single time anyone ever says, Israel, what you're doing is wrong, they literally double down on the cruelty towards the Palestinian population. Whether it's in the West Bank or whether it's in fucking Gaza, it doesn't matter. That they only have one note. They only have one fucking note. Pretty cynical timing here. For a while now, Smotrich has had his eyes set to steal the $19 billion NIS of the Negev Development Fund, money meant for the southern communities devastated by October 7. Yesterday, he succeeded. A preliminary vote passed a law that would nonsensically redefine the Negev to include South-West Bank settlements, thus funneling these desperately needed recovery funds towards settlement and outpost expansion. Every time this government mentions hostages and October 7's victims, they don't care. Exactly. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about the Gaza envelope. They don't give a shit about fucking the Negev communities. They only care about being more and more violent to the Palestinian population as best as they can. They literally have one note, and it's so transparent. You can always count on the Israeli government to go, oh my God, someone fucking said that we're actually in the wrong. Well, guess what? These Palestinians are now going to suffer because of that. It is just pure evil. It is pure evil. This is what I mean when I say the arrogance and the entitlement and the bloodlust of Zionism will lead to its inevitable demise. Okay? It is like it is comic book evil shit. It's fucking crazy. Anyway, let's watch this and then we'll get to it.
Disturbing video of hostages in Gaza. It's just come out. It shows female Israeli soldiers who it's believed are being held by Hamas. It was released by the hostages' families to pressure the Israeli government to make a deal to bring them home now. MTS Tayeb has more on this story.
Israeli protesters had one message for their government: free the hostages.
At least they're admitting that these are soldiers, by the way, and not like little girls or some shit.
Demonstrations were triggered by the release of a graphic video showing 5 female soldiers in Hamas captivity, made public by their families.
I want the world to know that she's more than a poster.
Sasha Aryev's 19-year-old sister Karina is seen in the video.
A few girls like in pajamas, blood-covered, terrified, and you just can't imagine, even when they're speaking to them, I don't think the girls realized, because they do not know the language, you are so pretty, you
Sorry if you covered it, but can you run down the difference between hostages and prisoners of war when it comes to soldiers? Yeah, no, they're literally prisoners of war in this situation. They're enemy combatants that were captured in an offensive campaign. The difference, however, is that they're literally fucking IDF soldiers that were captured in a fucking military base, whereas Israel will literally do collective fucking dragnets all the time, both in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas, and also in the Gaza Strip since its siege, and we'll just say every single man is a soldier. Every single man. Across the board. And then they'll fucking torture them in their torture facility, and then they'll release them after a couple days or weeks of torturing them. Anyone over the age of 15 all the way up to 65 is considered an enemy combatant and a functioning member of Hamas in the eyes of the Israeli military, at least for the duration of their torture. They'll fucking dragnet them. They'll strip them. They'll film the entire process. As you guys saw, you saw the footage. They'll make them do like, fun little bits where they'll be like, here, hold this AK for a second. Okay. Hold this AK for me, please. And then they'll just, they'll send them, they'll ship them off into the fucking desert in a torture facility. After torturing them for fucking weeks, they'll be like, okay, this guy was a nurse. Boom, released. To Israeli society, I should say there's no real difference in the discourse, especially because these soldiers were most likely with their families at school like a year ago. They are prisoners of war, though, of course. Yeah.
are the girls who will get pregnant.
Hamas has released a trove of October 7th propaganda videos. The family said they were given this edited version from the military that had removed more disturbing scenes.
Why did your family want to release this video to the public?
Because people are forgetting. We have the feeling that it's becoming normal.
Anger is only growing at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Many Israelis accuse him of blocking a hostage deal in order to prolong the war in Gaza, allegations he denies.
Do you think your Prime Minister is doing enough?
I came across a video from October 7 where a group of festival attendees were huddled into a large shower stall and Hamas threw grenades in the room. I really don't know how we resolve this issue. Yeah, I mean, there's horrifying footage from October 7. Like, I've seen them too. Like, the Hamas militants literally fucking opening fire. Like, they're doing mass shootings at porta potties and shit like that. Like, absolutely. a lot of people personally think that like the way that Palestinian resistance conducted themselves has to be perfect or was perfect. Like they have this weird belief that like, no, Palestinians are these like mythical beings. Like, no, your brain is broken by TV. Okay, you watch too much TV. In the real world, although one side is objectively worse than the other, no one is a perfect victim. Okay? And the Palestinian resistance is, of course, not going to be perfect in the way that they resist against the apartheid state, which is precisely the reason why we look at the overarching moral failure here. If one state is a nuclear state and heavily militarized and getting all of the armaments from the Western world and all the legal political cover to be able to maintain an apartheid, and the other is an ascetic resistance group that is pieced together by, orphaned people by the apartheid regime, then yeah, I'm going to be on the side of resisting against the apartheid, because morally speaking, I think it's unconscionable to do that to people. Okay? And the reality of the matter is that those people who have been fucked over in incredibly dramatic, unimaginable ways, when they lash out, when they conduct any kind of military incursion into Israel proper, when they do horrifying things to the Israeli civilian population that doesn't deserve it, mind you, okay, in what I would absolutely consider an act of terror, that still does not change the dynamic for me, even a little bit, okay? There is a lot more than October 7 for the Palestinians, for the Palestinian resistance groups, for Hamas or Al-Qassam or any number of these brigades. There's a lot more than October 7 for them to even come close to the harm that Israel conducts on a daily basis when they're not actually having a military siege, when they're not actually doing an ethnic cleansing campaign. This is something that a lot of people don't understand. Fanon said, decolonialization is always marked by violence, a violence that has been produced by colonizers and experienced by colonized subjects in their everyday lives. The same violence accumulated by the natives has to be claimed and launched back to the colonizers. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that the violence, the standard for violence is set by always the occupying force, okay? That's it. And Israel, as the occupying entity here, has set the standard of violence and has increased it over the years. So when that increases on the Israeli front, of course, the resistance side is also going to match the intensity to the best of their ability. But once again, when you look at like a Palestinian militant knowingly throwing a grenade into a civilian, into a crowd of civilians at a fucking at a rave, at a techno rave in the middle of the desert, right next to a concentration camp, mind you, but still, right? You go, that's unconscionable. That's so crazy. But we, in the Western world especially, have no way to contextualize, to understand the machine of death that Israel has created in the Gaza Strip. Because you think of how personal that is, right? You see a guy, it looks like it's a dude doing mass shooting and using grenades, right? That's something you can comprehend, right? That's terrifying. Imagine if that happened to you when you went to a techno concert, if you went to the EDC and they did some shit like that, right? Well, you can never understand entire city blocks being wiped out by laser-guided munitions, 2,000-pound bombs, killing every fucking family deliberately with AI targeting. Like, that's so beyond the pale for us. And I think that ends up creating a little bit of cover for Israel, because we're conditioned into thinking like blown up city blocks, that's Middle East shit. You know, they probably had it coming. Who knows? But the personal violence that you see, people actually fucking using weapons to shoot people, that's something that you can comprehend, especially as an American. Certainly, it's like waving a plate of meat in front of a starving lion. The dynamic hasn't changed for me either. I just have a hard time seeing the end of this being productive. I just want to be optimistic, but old Joe's going to see that footage and keep throwing more weapons into Israel. No, old Joe doesn't need to see that footage. He's already hallucinating the footage. Don't fool yourself. He literally has time and time again lied about what kind of footage he has seen. And there's plenty of fucking gruesome shit that you could look at from October 7. And yet, for some weird reason, old Joe still keeps making up other shit. The word you're looking for is nexus. Proximity contributes to our biases. That's why I always personally bring up the West Bank. Because the way that the Israeli occupying force and the Israeli government has conducted itself in the West Bank is something that even Americans can understand as unconscionable. Because it is literally the Jewish KKK brigades out there. Just a bunch of fucking inbred hicks literally doing pogroms to the Arab population and kicking them out deliberately from their ancestral homes, specifically with the go-ahead by the IDF. And an occupying military force comes in and defends them and ends up killing anyone that says, don't do this to me. When you see that shit, you understand exactly what it is. Anyway, troops captured after being defeated in combat are hostages? No, they're not. These guys are, dude, we see the same, it's the same thing with like American troops. That's it. If an American guy in Afghanistan gets captured, they're not going to be considered a prisoner of war. They're going to be referred to by the media as a hostage, even though technically they are a prisoner of war. Then it's not a war crime when they're mass shot up. Why do we keep pretending resistance to a war crime is justified and legal even under half-ass international law? No. Dude, come on. I don't know why we still have this fucking conversation. You're not going to be able to convince me on this issue, okay? I have an understandable distaste for targeting civilian populations. I think that you should too. And it's both for, it's both for the playing a political purpose, but it also is something that I'm genuinely against personally. They're active members or reservists or armed settlers. How are they civilians? Yeah, dude. There were plenty of people who were not any of those things. Okay, you're ridiculous. Once again, they don't need to be, the Palestinian resistance does not have to be perfect. Okay? It does not have to be perfect for me to say that their cause, Palestinian emancipation and an end to the fucking occupation is just. An end to the apartheid is just. I have, I guess in my assessment, a better understanding of historical violence than you do. This is absolutely something that has always happened. Okay? It happened during the abolition era. It happened in Algeria. It happened in Ireland. It happened in apartheid South Africa. It has always happened and will always continue to happen. It happened in Haiti. It will never not happen.
Every day that she's not home, it becomes harder for me not to be disappointed. But if I won't believe, I won't come out from my bed in the morning.
So you have to believe she'll come home.
Yes.
For CB.
Fundamentally, morality politics is deeply liberal and always favors those who maintain violence in structured ways that are not readily discussed or shown. Resistance is justified. Dismantling systems of oppression is justified. Condemning those resisting apartheid is pointless. Yeah. I have friends who escaped the music festival by the skin of their teeth. I put my finger through the porta potty bullet holes. The question isn't about moral responsibility. That's a discussion I don't have the student debt to handle. There's a conflict. There's a history. There are power structures. I don't care who's at fault for October 7. I care about what material systems drive the conflict and who holds the power and what can we do to achieve a just resolution of the conflict. Exactly. 100%. This is why I always fucking say, like, analysis does not mean justification. Like, and when I talk about like the actions of October 7, every single person is immediately like, wait a minute. You're not immediately running to fucking talk about the barbaric monsters that are Arab dogs that are operating on antiquated, ancient epigenetic anti-Semitism that is, that is their biological predetermined destiny. They have to operate this way. They wanted to kill Jews. That's why they did this. And it's like, no, that's not the reason. You are delusional for thinking that that is the reason. There's a very obvious reason for why this is occurring. I recently saw a Piers Morgan interview and the questions he was asking didn't make sense at all, and you were furious about it? Yes. Oh,